Hi everyone, and you are welcome to this lecture, Casting in Python. I know that the concept casting is a little bit weird, so I will start by defining what casting is, then we will see the available casting functions, and I will end up this lecture by a quick summary. So let's get started. What's casting? Casting is a way of explicitly informing the interpreter that you want to convert the data type of a variable. We know that we have a lot of data types in Python, like integer, float, list, tuple, dictionary, and so on. And we need a way to convert one type to another, and this is known as casting. We could need casting in a lot of scenarios. Like for example, when we send data over network, we send this data as a JSON string. Regarding list, what is the original data type? So we send numbers, lists, and so on as strings. Once we receive this data, we have to restore this data to its original data type. And in order to do that, we are going to use casting functions. Before I show you these casting functions, I need you to know some notes first. The first note, that casting could lead to data loss. And this happens when we convert float into integer, because any integer number does not support the floating point. So converting float into integer will lead to losing the numbers after the floating point. The second note is that casting is not applicable between any two types of data. So for example, you cannot convert integer, which is a single item, into a list, which is a collection of items. The last note is that casting is sometimes conditionally accepted between two data types, like for example from string into integer. And I mean by that string can be converted into integer, but not all strings are convertible into integer. Now let's see together casting functions, and I put all of these functions in this table. I will start by the first function, but this function it's not a casting function, but it's useful in this context. It's type, and we already see this function, and we know that this function shows the variable data type. After that, the next function is pool, and pool it's a function that converts any value you pass into boolean. List will convert any value you pass into list. We have also set, tuple, integer, float, str, and dict. When I say any value you pass, with condition if it's applicable to convert this value into the according type. Now let's move to PyCharm IDE to see some real examples. The first example that I want to show you is the following. Assume I have a equal to 1, and then I print the type of a, and I run. As you see here, I got integer. And this is quite clear because 1 is an integer number. Now let me say I want to convert this integer number into float. So I will use a float function and I will say float a, then I will print the type of b and the value of b. And I will comment this and run. As you see here, when I print the type of b, I got float because the type has been converted using float function. And when I print b, I got 1.0. So now 1 become a float number. Let me say I want to convert now this a, which is equal to 1, into string has one letter, which is a digit of 1. So if I run this code after I use str function, as you see now the class become str, so the type of b now it's a string, and if I print b I will get 1 as you see. Now let me show you an example about data loss. Assume a equal to 4.567. If I print the type of a, I will get float as you see here. Now, let me convert this a into integer, run. As you see, the original type is a float. Then I convert b into integer and then print b and type b, so I get 4 and the type is integer. You note here that the result after converting float into integer is 4 without any floating point. And this means I lost this part of the number. And this is what I meant by data loss. Now let's see another example which is not applicable to use casting. I will say a equal to 4.56 for example, and I will say b equal to list a. If I run, I will get type error, float object is not iterable, and from this we can understand that we are not able to convert a number which is float into the type list. The last example that I want to show you in this code session, that sometimes we are able to convert string into numbers, but other times I'm not able. So let's see why. Assume I have s equal to 1, 2, 3. And here we know that we have a string, all of its items are numbers or digits. Let me say a equal to integer s, and I will print now the type of a, and I will print a itself. Run. As you see here, the type of a now, it's an integer, which means integer function here succeeded and the value has been converted into integer. Let me make now a small update. I will say 123 a and run. As you see here, I got value error, and this value error because integer function is not able to convert the value 123a into integer number because there is no digit a in this case, and I got value error. So you note from this example that sometimes I'm able to convert, but other times I'm not able. And that's all for this code session. Now let's recap what we have learned in this lecture. First of all, casting has been defined as a way to convert the data type of a variable from one type to another. And we say before you use casting, you have to know that casting is not always applicable, and in some cases it could lead to data loss. Now I want you please to refer to casting in Python appendix file, in which you will find all the functions that have been covered in this lecture have been summarized. Also please refer to the file Casting in Python Challenges, in which you will find some exercises to practice what you have learned in this lecture. And that's all for this lecture. Thank you very much for your time, and if you are available, join me in the next lecture.